Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to yet another episode of your Heroes of Noise. I'm one half of this dynamic duo. My name is Steve.
What's going on, Steve? You having a good afternoon so far?
Yes, I am.
You good?
I am.
You good to
I
go?
am. Of course. How about you, Daneth, in the man?
Y'all jazzed up and charged up and shit, ready to do this?
I live charged. Wait,
Nice.
Who are you talking to?
That's pleasant. You know what? I know this is going to be on video this time, but I'm feeling weird because we don't do video a lot, so I don't know where to fucking look. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 172 of Heroes of Noise. My name is Dan. I'm happy to be here. We have a very special guest today.
Yes.
You know, we've been doing the whole thing on Halloween is our deal. I don't know if you mystery guest. I'm sure you're not aware of that, but Halloween's our deal. We love doing like through the pretty much the month of October. It's all about like thrillers, chillers, killers, shit like that. And I think that today is going to be a special day for a lot of people because I'm very happy to announce that our mystery guest. I'm going to keep it a mystery for just a quick second. Let me just do the whole narration thing that I normally do. You know, kind of build it up a little bit. But check this out. I hope he's impressed by this, Steve. I really do.
Oh, I can't wait. I don't even know what's coming. Let's do it.
I don't know either. Actually, I'm just going to wing this shit. But here we go. Throat clearing. All right. In 2017, he gave us Stillborn. In 2019, he came correct with Z. And by the way, I just watched that last night. I can't wait to talk about that one. But there's a movie that Steve turned me on to. We've talked about it recently. And somehow the stars lined up to where we were actually able to chat with this gentleman. So we're talking about the movie Superhost. And I am talking about the writer and director of Superhost by the name of Brandon Christensen. Brandon, welcome to the show. How you doing, man?
What's up? Thank you for the big intro. It's exciting to hear. Just
There you
forgot
go, right?
Mother of Dragons was missing, but beyond that, it's pretty good.
It's really good to have you on the show, dude. And I want to say, first and foremost, thank you very much for giving us your time.
No worries.
I plan on having some fun today. So let's talk about real quick before we kind of just start loosening shit up and everything. What inspired Superhost? I promise I'm not going to hit you with some generic questions, but the reason that I ask you this question is that Airbnbs kind of freak me the fuck out. I'm going to be really honest with you. I've always had this issue with, I watch like TikTok videos and stuff like that, and they give you those demonstrations
Right.
of like, oh, don't put your finger to the mirror, and if it's like, I think if there's a space between your fingers, there might be a mirror. I don't know.
I
if you've
did
heard
not
about
know
this.
that.
A two-way
I was unaware
mirror.
of this. Okay.
They tell you how to like look for like cameras with your phone in the vents and stuff. So
Right.
quite honestly, I have never stayed in an Airbnb simply because of these things. And brother, your movie is not helping me with this situation. It's making me very, very uptight with the whole Airbnb thing.
Yeah.
But you did it brilliantly. So I'll stop babbling. I would like to know kind of where this came from.
So I mean, we had an interesting experience several years ago when we shot the movie It Stains the Sands Red. Which was a zombie film that I produced. It was the first feature I ever worked on. But we rented a really big Airbnb just pretty close to my house. It was just a big house rental that we could put all the cast in. And the people that were out of town, they could just sort of like make it the revolving door, sort of living spaces. And the place had a bunch of cameras in it. And the people that were staying there did not treat the place very well. Like when they checked out after a month or whatever, the place was just filthy, just disgusting. And the owner of the Airbnb tried to sue the movie or the people that, I guess the movie was never told. Like we didn't tell them we were doing a movie or anything like that. But they used all these images from the cameras being like, you had more people than you were supposed to, that you signed up and all that stuff. And so that was that was definitely the first kind of part or time that I ever had like an interesting experience with an Airbnb. And I've stayed at them a bunch of times when I do shoots or something like that somewhere. It's just nice to have something a little less corporate than a hotel. Not that I don't like hotels or anything like that, but you can get some cool experiences. But I was in Toronto when I was doing a film festival circuit for Z, and I stayed in this really nice kind of high-rise condo that I got. I was just like, I haven't been to Toronto in a long time. I used to live there, and it was kind of exciting to be there, so I thought I'd kind of treat myself a little bit. Mm-hmm. And I got this really cool place, and I showed up from the airport and took a pee and tried flushing, and nothing went down. And I'm just like, oh no, like this is weird. I take off the tank, I'm looking at the chain, nothing's out of sorts. There's no plunger, there's nothing like that. So I had to reach out to the Airbnb host, and we have this awkward conversation. And he ends up sending a security guard that worked there, and they took a look, and they couldn't fix it. So he's like, I'm going to go get a plunger. I'll be back. And he shows up at the door, and I'm just sort of having this super weird small talk conversation with him while he's plunging a toilet that I have used.
Full of your urine.
Yeah, and, I mean it's directly out of the script, and I even made the dumb joke like, oh, at least it was just number one, Just
Yeah, I got that.
the awkward small talk stuff,
Yeah.
and so he left. It was all fine. No one killed each other, but it was just kind of that feeling of like, man, I'm in this guy's space. And I don't know him. He doesn't know me. We could be anybody. Like, what is the checks and balances with, a company like Airbnb? There's not really. You just sign up and go. And that just sort of left a kind of this weird feeling in my head, like why are we so trusting of these people that do this thing? It's so like Uber,
Really?
ride sharing things, all that. It's just we're such a private society right now, and we're so scared of everybody. It seems
Yes.
like. It's weird that we're just totally okay when someone's got a good 5-star rating or whatever, and so that was kind of the big germ of the idea there. And then I was late on the ball to see Creep, Mark Duplass.
Oh,
film.
so good.
So good.
Oh, so
And-
good, dude.
And watching that movie, it was just just struck me how fun it was, even though it was a horror film. Like, it's just so fun because he's such an awesome character. He's just like. Super lovable, super charming, super funny, while still doing horrible things. And I just thought that was such an interesting concept for a killer. It's almost like a non-supernatural Freddy Krueger,
Yes.
where he's the star of the film, even though, generally it's kind of this stalking presence. But, I just wanted to sort of take my own a stab at that, if you will, like try and create a character who's a complete psychopath, but by the end of the movie, you've kind of switched your own morals are kind of lessened when you're like, you know what, I'm kind of rooting for this person now, even though they're doing horrible things. So
Yes.
that
Yes.
was that was a big inspiration as well. Just trying to figure out a character who could kind of do that large swing from crazy to likable.
Absolutely.
Oh, and did you knock it out of the goddamn park picking her, by the way, too, man?
Jeez,
Oh, my God.
dude.
Yeah, we got super lucky. It was just a total random chance. We were talking to a number of different actresses, and they were all booked on different things. And Gracie's friend Sierra McCormick was shooting another film at the same time, and so she couldn't do it. But she just was like, "Hey, check out my friend Gracie Gillum." And I looked her up, and I saw all these teen beach movie things that she did with Disney, singing and dancing and all that stuff. And I was just like, that's totally that fakeness that she puts on for that performance is Rebecca. So it was, it was a very quick decision. We're just like, that's really interesting. She was very young, which wasn't written to be that young, but it's kind of interesting just to have this young, small, total psychopath that can annihilate some people that are totally ill-equipped to survive.
So that's and the funny thing is, I love how you position Teddy as us. He's us.
Right.
Everyone else is kind of in this weird, and Teddy's like, is this weird to
Right.
anyone else in this room? And so we're all looking at life through Teddy's eyes, being like, yeah, you're not crazy. This whole thing, even during the interview when she interviewed and got really into it, he's like, and like his girl Vera's like, or Claire was
Claire.
like, Claire was like, hey, that was fantastic, right? And Teddy was like, no, this is crazy. And so the whole audience is like, yes, thank you. I'm not the only insane
Right.
person. And he just goes along. And I also love how you made him. He's not freaking Jason Bourne.
Right.
When she's like, hey, go see who's downstairs. He's like, what the hell am I going to do?
He's like, nah, man.
Like, what am I going to do? Am I some sort of like expert in martial
Right.
arts?
He
What am I
could-
going to I love that dude.
He could have turned on the lights probably, but
I mean,
it's
yeah.
less scary. No one ever does. You watch every horror movie and they never turn on the lights.
Yeah, don't worry. That's you're supposed to not in the movie.
Right,
And
for
also,
sure.
it's not his house.
Right.
I wouldn't know where the crap the lights were. And so I'm like,
sure.
am I going to make more noise looking for the light than just going downstairs? I just love, what was the decision in making him the everyman? Where it's like, I'm not going to make him know how to like dodge, I can kind of fight. You're like, nope. He is not apt to fight at all. He is probably the worst fighter in your group of friends at this very second.
Yeah, I mean, it was just kind of a choice to make him sort of the beta of the relationship. I thought that was interesting to have
Yeah.
her kind of the driving force of their business, and just to have, it is kind of taking on the typical gender roles where you have the guy who's the protector. It's almost
Yes.
flipped around, but there's still there's still that thing where she goes, "You do it because you should. You're the protector," and it's just like, I'm not though. Like she probably would have been fine if she went, but she keeps sending him because I think there's just a total disconnect in their relationship. Obviously, like
Yes.
Right.
We're not privy to the 5 or so years that they've had together where things were probably better. And since they've hit a bad, rough period with their channel, I think she's so fully devoted to just fixing that problem that she's not realizing the fractions that she's creating with her own relationship. And so
Yes.
Teddy, ever the optimist, is just trying to sort of, it's kind of like, we should have a baby. That'll fix our problem. So that's what he's thinking. Like, let's go to the next step and we can recapture what we had before, when I think at this point it's almost like a platonic business partnership, for Claire. So yeah, we're definitely coming into this relationship really late, so there isn't that kind of public displays of affection or anything like that. They're very comfortable with one another, and I do think that they love each other. But at the same time, like, when shit goes down, I think that she is still just like, Teddy will protect me, and he's just not that guy. He's not a hero. He's a vlogger.
Not. He's and I love the meta commentary. I know this was on purpose because I was like, oh, he's making it happen through the whole film. How it's just like, apparently at one point they were very happy, and that equaled that perfectly lined up with a grip of views on the channel. And it's just like, we got more happy, views went up. More happy,
Yeah.
views went up.
It's directly proportional to it.
Directly. And then so when the views went down, she's thinking, oh, that's a problem in our relationship.
Could be.
And you're like, no, it's actually, we're good.
Right.
It's just the channel's not doing well. But in her brain, no, that means we're not doing well. And I was like, this is genius. Because it's kind of, every person that has like a YouTube channel is like, well, if the views are down, I'm down.
Right.
I'm like,
totally.
wow, what a smart, smart meta commentary, dude.
But the thing is, there actually is some truth to that. I mean, Steve, I'm as psycho as they get when it comes to like podcast numbers. Not so much anymore and stuff like that, but you can get on that wavelength of like the numbers equate happiness or whatever. But I like the way that Brandon put it, because it's like, we're in the later part of their relationship. It's quite established already. They've already seen their highs and lows, and now they're at this point, like he said, where it's like the example was, well, maybe we should have a baby and that'll fix everything. It seems like they're going 2 different directions like that. Teddy's taking the more practical, lifelong approach to things, maybe a more you know what I mean? Like, it's a little more thought out, to where this will take us to the next phase of our lives. And with Claire, she gets so consumed with the numbers of it. That's the only thing that she wants to fix right now. So It does kind of put them into that weird sort of platonic relationship where they're just not firing all cylinders anymore,
Oh,
Yeah.
so smart.
I just thought that was such a very real aspect to a movie that you put in there. And by the way, do you mind if we spoil a little bit? If we put
Spoil ahead. It's been out for over a month. Just spoil away.
Cool.
Over only a month?
Yeah.
Oh, that's soon.
Yeah, that's fine.
It's soon, but
It's soon.
It's
but
fine.
but we can always put the spoiler warning in. So,
Yeah.
So if you're listening at this
Yeah.
point, we're probably going to go into spoilers. So if you get to this part and you haven't read the notes, because there's going to be notes saying spoiler warning. But just so you guys are aware, okay?
I'm just not going to let this spoiler out. I know we should, but there is a guest star that shows up that for any horror film like lover, when she shows, you're like, oh my god!
It made it more official.
How did you get her?
I'm sure you're talking about. I mean, it's in the credits. It's not. She's been.
Steve is very
credits.
spoiler sensitive.
Yeah,
Because I love this movie and I want people to see it. And if I say all this stuff and they're just like, oh, okay. I was surprised when I had to push pause and look close.
Really?
I was like, is that Barbara?
Yeah. Yeah. It's
I said, what?
Barbara Crampton. Yeah, we got.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, it was exciting. She had reached out to me about a year and a half, or I guess back then it was like a year before we shot, asking, she had a script that she was seeing if I'd be interested in, taking a look at to potentially direct. And it never went anywhere, but I had her email in my, sort of my Rolodex now. So I wrote this role, and I just sort of needed that. It's all, like in Stillborn, we had Michael Ironside, and in Z, we have Stephen McCaddy, and it's just like that recognizable face that you can, immediately you just go, oh, okay, this is a movie. It just sort of bridges that gap from indie to something real. And so I just sort of reached out, and I was like, hey, Barb, I know the thing didn't work with the other thing, but I have this script. It's like 2 days. Would you want to come out and do it? And she was just like, yeah, let's do it. Like, just no issues. Paid her basically nothing. She just came out, did it for a couple days with a smile, and it was super fun. I mean, because this is a movie where you have that character that you get someone that has been in the business for a while, and you're putting them in a situation where they have to get really dirty, and that I was really concerned with, because it's just like I have to get Barbara to lay in the dirt and like kick around and do all this stuff. And I was just concerned, but she was just totally down, like 100%. Like, you've got blood. We're in spoiler territory.
Everywhere.
Yeah. And we're like putting blood in her mouth so she can spit some up. And we're just like, okay, take a big. She's like, just give it to me. And she's like, and just chugs it back.
Oh my goodness, that's
and
awesome.
She was just like, you could tell that she's not that, there's no ego or anything there. She just wants to do it, and she loves horror, and she just loves to do that stuff. So she was just, she was just an awesome sort of person to just have with us for those couple days. It just sort of, it was near the end of the shoot, but it just sort of brought everybody up and made everybody go like, oh, this is a ton of fun to be working with her. So yeah, that was awesome. She's definitely she's a treat.
I mean, and the funny thing is, after that scene, it goes from 0 to
so quick,
where it's like, oh, this woman's different, to, oh, wait, because I thought it was just gonna be like, oh, this woman's, she's a little bit off. You were like, no, you don't get, she's not just off. And I was like, oh, he took it he took it all the way there. It's the first movie in a horror movie, like this is the first horror movie in a long time, because I'm a horror fanatic, and it's the first movie where at the end I said, it's not supposed to end like that.
Right.
It's not supposed to do that, because the guy is adorable. And so I'm just like, oh, he's a dude from Supernatural. He's not supposed to go out like this. And so I was like, oh, it's just such it broke and normally I could see it coming a mile away. A mile away. I said, oh, I get what's going to happen. Wrong again, dude. The way you ended this movie, you definitely were like, I hope you watch a funny movie after this. Like, don't go to sleep, don't go to work. You have to lift your spirits.
Right.
Because, man, you took it from, oh, she's quirky. And to like, oh, no. It's more than that. Which I just was like, man, who is this guy? Who is this director? I told Dan. I was like, no, this movie is the one. This is the movie, man. Because it's such a shocker. And who came up with the poster?
A friend of mine, Tony Coppolillo, he's like done posters for every, you look at like Avatar, Lord of the Rings stuff, Matrix. He's done everything. He used to work for a big firm, and now he freelances. But I've been friends with him for a long time, and just like the most talented artist that I've ever met, and we're just like, good friends after all this time. And so I hired him to do it, and we just sort of, like, I wanted to hit on the kind of the multiple personalities type of thing. And so we just sort of, during the filming, when she was all bloodied up, we just did a series of reactions and stuff like that. So we got her doing a bunch of different stuff. And Tony and I just sort of looked at them, and we picked 3 that we liked, and he just sort of went and did the split thing. And it was just one of those things where it's just like, oh, that's awesome. Like that's,
it's so I didn't even know what it was, but that poster immediately was like, click, I'm watching this. And it's just like, whoa.
And there's this scene in the main room that just disturbs the shit out of me. And I've always been this way with movies, too. It's where Teddy sees her in the window, and she's staring directly at him, and she's covered in blood. And then she just does that mad dash off to the side. It's like, where the hell's she going?
Right.
That has always been something with me that I don't want to use the word triggered in the wrong way, but it kind of triggers that reaction with me where it's just like, oh shit, now we got, I mean, we always had a movie, but now we really got a movie, because for me, I like that area of suspense. Where did they go?
Right.
Where are they watching us from? And I just think you did that so fantastically. And, it's you just see this, even in the poster, you just see that transition of someone that's just fairly normal to all phases of how crazy that they can get.
Right.
And I just think that you pulled it off so well, man. I mean, it's just like fucking bravo. I really, really love this movie. It's literally one of the funnest movies that I've seen this year. And I've seen a lot of movies.
Right. And that was kind of the goal too, is just to make something fun. Because like my first 2 movies are the opposite of fun. They're very dark, brooding, and just like you feel like shit the entire time. So I was, they're both mom and baby or kid movies, and I was just like, I got to do the exact opposite of that for my next one, or else I'll be that guy that's just doing the mom and kid horror, and it's just like, those are great, but I wanted to sort of try something new. So I definitely wanted to lean more into like a comedy that was very dark and get, it's definitely kind of genre bending a little bit. It goes from different places and ultimately ends in pretty serious horror stuff. But yeah, it was just sort of a chance to flex a different muscle, I guess.
And the funny thing is, it's so, what I love talking about this stuff is I'm not inventing things. You did this stuff on purpose. The only reason that her standing outside and running is scary is because you have already set up the fact that Teddy is not Jason Bourne.
Right.
If he was Jason Bourne, we'd be like, well, he's going to catch her and then hurt her, and it's a done move. But the fact that you're like, oh no, this guy's a wimp. Mm-hmm. So her doing that is like really scary for all of us because there is no savior.
Yeah.
There's no one in that house that is the savior.
Right.
It's like, oh Jesus.
Yeah.
What are we going to do?
It's definitely like the divisive thing of the film is that they go back to the house after everything kind of goes down in the forest. Yeah. And I kind of wish that there was just like a throwaway line like, well, let's just go inside and we'll figure out what we need to do, because they have a quick dialogue outside before they go in where she's like, let's go to the car. And he's like, she might be waiting there. And so they're just kind of trapped. I mean, I don't know. So I've just seen a lot of people like, why would they go back to the house? And to me, it's just like, well, I know that it's her place and she has the codes and all that stuff, but at least you can put a wall between you and her, you know.
Yes.
If she's in the forest and she just catches you, you're dead, you know. So it's just like get into something, figure out what you're going to do, and then do it. And it all pretty, you know, it happens pretty rapidly from that point. But yeah, that's definitely kind of the one thing that I wish I'd thrown in there was just like a throwaway line, like let's just go inside and you know figure out what we do next, and then we'll do that. But yeah, when it's basically just like these two people, they do a YouTube show. Like they're not survivalists. They're
exactly.
He's got you know, great physique and everything, but it's more just glamour muscles for this character. You know, not Osric Chow in real life. He's very strong, does a lot of fighting and stunts, and he does a lot of stuff like that. But it was funny. He's just like, I would attack her, and I'm just like, you would attack her maybe. I'm not saying, you know, but Teddy would not. He's just not that guy. And when we do have kind of the final standoff in the basement, and he's sort of holding his weapon, it's funny because like when we're blocking for that scene, you know, there's just, I mean, especially now with the whole Alec Baldwin thing, you can see how there's just like, you know, he's holding a real fire poker. We didn't have a fake one or anything, and it is
a fire poker. Oh, you mean the
fireplace poker?
That's a real one that he's holding? Oh.
Yeah. So it's like, you know, we're having a conversation. It's like, okay, well, because in the script, it's a little bit more of a, you know, a fight there.
Yes.
But it's just like, we're such an indie budget, we didn't have a prop version of that. We just sort of had the real thing. So her going at him and stuff, we just sort of had to simplify it down to just being kind of like, he kind of holds it up weakly, and then she just quickly dismantles it and, you know, finishes him. But yeah, it's just you know, it'd be great to have this like big standoff, and he's swinging and hitting her, and she's got the cut on her face, and she's like, ugh, you know, like a kung fu movie or something. But
licks the blood.
But it's just like, these people don't do that. They're just they have zero fight in them. They expect to, you know, they've got this. I think that's the whole point. Is like they're so comfortable to exploit this girl for views because they don't think anything could possibly happen to them. You know, it's like, we've got fans. Why would anyone do something? We're public. You know, people know us. People like us. So why would anyone attack us if we did something stupid? And so they do something stupid, and they make some big mistakes, and they don't have any protection. And the people that they think that they're protected by, their fans, abandon them. So it's just kind of like, yeah, these people. It never really made sense for them to be heroes and stuff like that.
I thought that, and also another awesome thing that you did was, you're like, look, you make us rethink the whole movie. When you show where she's been this whole time, now my brain goes backwards.
Right.
And I'm like, oh my gosh, the whole time they were, oh my God, when they were even, oh my, like it makes you rethink the whole movie again. And I'm like, that's what you call brilliance. Because it makes it retroactively scary.
Right.
And you're like, oh God.
I knew we were in for some shit when he pulled those false teeth. The dentures out of the toilet. I'm like,
oh no!
And it's not a knock to the movie whatsoever. But I'm like, okay, I know, I know, I think I know. But I love that you know, you never really let on to it. And another thing that I thought was great is, I don't know how you feel about like YouTube influencers, vloggers, and things like that. But the way that you nailed the whole "hey guys" and all of that stuff that they do, you know, some might say that type of a persona on YouTube is a little bit on the it's overdoing it. It's extreme. Do you know what I'm saying? And we see it all the time. It's all over, you know? So how do you feel about influencers and vloggers? Is it something where it's like, you know, I think I want to have these people in a movie and I would love them to be slaughtered, you know, or is it just part of it? It just works well with the movie itself.
I mean, it was definitely like when I first started thinking of it, it started from the Airbnb concept. And it's like, well, who do you have staying there? And the initial idea was just like, oh, you've got a couple or you've got 4 people, whatever, friends. And it just sort of, once, you know, COVID hit and all that stuff, and we realized we really had to keep it small, it was like, let's keep the cast tighter. And then we've got 2 people going there, and it's always the question of like, okay, well, why are they going there? And it's like, oh, well, maybe the guy wants to propose, but it's like, okay, that's fine, that's simple enough. But then you just want to keep adding layers to it, and then you go like, okay, well, here's an Airbnb that has cameras that's filming people that like to film themselves. So you're just kind of like creating these mismatches in where they are. You've got this host that's pretending to be someone that she's not. You've got these vloggers who are pretending to be something that they're not. And so they're all kind of like, everybody's lying the entire time. Nobody is who they say they are. And you're just slowly seeing the cracks in that. So it was just kind of like a matter of complicating the narrative and making it not just like, okay, a couple people go to a place and that's, you know, they deal with this thing. There's a reason for them to be there. There's a reason for them to want to stay. They want to get the content. They want to get the views. They want to, you know, fix their channel. And so it was just kind of that. And it's like, you want to have these people that hopefully the audience likes, but by the end of the movie, they're rooting for the villain. Like that was ultimately the goal here. So, who, you know, I think in general, it's a pretty tough place to start when your main characters are vloggers. You know, like a lot of people have a very strong distaste for that. So that was definitely the most challenging part, is just like, okay, how do we make the audience care about these people? And you know, I've read and I've seen a lot of reviews, and a lot of people just don't, and that's fine. But at the same time, like, you need to start saying why they're having these problems. And if you don't have sympathy for them, you have to at least empathize with the situation. And so that's why you have Claire's character just sort of slowly breaking down over these numbers and getting upset. And like, oh, we can't support ourselves. Your parents have to pay for us and all that stuff, which are, I think, pretty relatable problems. You know, I mean, a lot of people don't care about, oh, wow, their biggest problem in life is their viewership is down. But it's more basic than that. It's just we can't take care of each other. That's a big problem. Like, why? I'm not even going to think about getting married right now if we can't even just provide the basics for us without your parents paying for everything. So the goal, you know, that was kind of it, because Claire is going to be unlikable because she's that fake. She's the fake one, especially. Yeah. So, and it's like from the very beginning, you see her and she's all smiles, and then right when they say cut, it's like, boom, the real. And that's a tough position to be in as a writer, because the character has to be unlikable, because you have to see the contrast between her on screen and off screen. So on screen she's bright and bubbly, but off screen she has to be the exact opposite, which is just kind of cold and very like business driven. So yeah, it's a weird situation, but by the end, kind of the whole goal is just to be like, okay, we've got these 2 dealing with this weirdo. This chick's weird. What's going on with this chick? And then by the end, you're just like, yeah, you know what? Screw those guys. I like her. I'm on Team Rebecca now. You know, that was the ultimate goal. So it's just hard, man, writing a movie when you're just trying to figure out what the characters want and what they need and all the things. And I just sort of thought that doing the social media thing was interesting. And I also really like the idea of filming in different formats. So you'd be doing most of the film as a narrative, just normal. But then a lot of it, or parts of it anyways, are done in like the vlog style, and you can play with the audio and how it all works together and stuff like that. It was just kind of fun to experiment with that. So it's a complicated answer, but it's just sort of how, building the narrative. How do you add as many layers as you can before it kind of topples?
Well, I think it was I love the fact that I didn't have to like the couple. I just had to like Teddy.
Right.
That's it.
For sure.
And so now if something happens to both of them, I'm invested.
Right.
Like, since if Claire gets hurt, it hurts me because it hurts Teddy. Because I'm invested in Teddy now.
Right.
Because he's like, after that the mountain proposal. Oh, I'm in.
I was done. I was done with her at that point.
I'm with him now. I am with him because he thinks he's in. He's not doing this vlogger thing. He's like, no, I love you. This isn't a game to me. This is real, and now I'm invested, and everything that takes place after that, it matters now.
Right.
I don't see them as vloggers, and I see them as, oh, this poor guy, he loves this woman.
Right.
And if anything happens to either one of them, it messes me up because he loves her. So you did it perfectly. I was invested in them.
It's funny because the proposal thing, like at the end of the day, that was like the fakest he ever was in the film, is when he's doing, hey guys, he's doing those secret updates. And so, I mean, even though Claire comes off horribly in that scene, the fact of the matter is she's not wrong. Like he did set up the camera.
No, you're
right.
He
was prepping to do this.
They've been going about it like that. Yeah, the whole time.
No, you're right. I didn't think about that.
Yeah, so it is really complicated that they both, it is a genuine moment, but neither of them know how to experience that anymore. They're just totally, everything is all about the cameras and everything, getting it on, getting it right. And so there's no ability to just be like, oh, this is real. This is a real feeling we're having. You actually called my dad. Like, they can't compute a real moment. So it's just, they're just totally disconnected from each other on that level at this point. So, it's interesting. Yeah, so Teddy's not fully in the right there.
You just ruined Teddy for me. Oh, I didn't even think about
trash.
That. Crap. He did set up the freaking camera because I was heartbroken. I said, what are you doing, woman? He's being real. But she sees the camera. She's like,
she sees it.
Oh, you know what? You're right.
And it breaks the, because it's shot in the found footage kind of thing, the big wide angle. And then when she realizes, it shows her kind of register, and she's like, and big smiles, and then her tone is totally changed. Like she's kind of making fun of him, and then she's not at all. So it's definitely on purpose to be very confusing ethically.
And the funny thing is, now you bring up the whole found footage thing. How hard was it doing the audio editing, knowing that you had to make sure that when you're doing it found footage, there has to be sounds of the mic rubbing on shirts and stuff, and like matching that up? Was that a little difficult, or were you just like, oh, we'll just use the real mics from the footage?
No,
to have it clipped. And
I thought all you had to do was just go like this, and that's
Well, we have a great sound guy, just Joe Baruco. He's up in Montreal. He did all the post sound and stuff. Okay. So they do a full Foley pass, and he treated all the audio when it's in that found footage to sound different. It's just like a choice that I think he just did it on his own and did this really processed sound, so it has this totally different feeling to it. And when I didn't think it would work, but when I saw it, I was just like, oh, that's really cool. Like you could tell just by, it already looks like crap, but it sounds like crap too. And it was just kind of an interesting choice. But yeah, having it just sort of be very rustly and you're kind of hearing the movements of the camera and stuff. Yeah, that was really important just to make it feel kind of more visceral, like I think how found footage films do it. But it was fun to play with those two for sure.
It was, and also, because when I'm watching the movie and she does that interview and she's really hyper, did Gracie, was there a point where you were watching her and you said cut and you were like, whoa, that was a lot? They're not the only ones witnessing this. It's people behind them being like, Jesus.
Or for that matter, was there any point in time where you had to be like, hey, maybe take it up a little bit more because she was still trying to find her way?
So there, it's with the interview, the way it was written was a little, I think in the script, it's a little bit more robotic, like her reactions to things, like when she freezes and stuff like that, and the tear happens. That's all scripted, but there was this like total human detachment happening in her head in the script. But what Gracie did was she kind of, when we shot that scene, I thought it was going to be, it's very similar how it all plays out, the reactions and stuff like that. But when the tears started to happen and she's talking about this older couple and stuff like that, and there was like there was this weird feeling like everyone on set felt bad for her. They're like, wow, like I honestly feel bad for her, and that wasn't intentional. Like I thought it was gonna. By the end, it was just weird, not emotional, and not. Yeah. But it was a good thing that she brought that to it, because it does kind of make you feel a little bit more comfortable around her. Like, oh, she's just weird and she doesn't really know. Whereas I think the script was more like she's just totally detached human and has no real experiences with other humans and stuff like that. So so that was interesting to see. And with regards to Dan's question, she so basically her stuff was, a lot of it was shot in order. Like she didn't come till the second week of the shoot. So we had already established kind of a tone, and it's like, oh, this is a creepy house movie. We've got these two people walking in the dark, blah, blah, blah. And then she comes in week 2, and we kind of go back in time, and we're doing the, where they meet in front of the house. And that was that, it's always kind of difficult to figure out, okay, what's the first impression we get of this person? And Gracie, what I wasn't expecting again was just sort of like this Melissa McCarthy goofiness to her.
Yeah.
Where she's just like that
That's such a good
dorky,
analogy.
dorky
Yes.
kind of thing. We're doing
Adorable.
finger guns.
I was like,
yeah.
oh, look at her.
And just like trying to be, you know, and it was just a lot broader than I was expecting, which was funny because it's just very goofy, and it added this weird energy to it that kind of kept going. And it was really fun directing her because she would do a take of any scene, and then you'd be like, okay, let's change this, let's you know, be a little more Valley Girl on this take, you know, like really faking it for them, and then we would just kind of play with it and roll over and over and over and just have her do all these different things, and every time she would do something really different, and it was really fun to watch for everybody, but for me, because I was editing the film, I was just like, I don't know what the hell to use. Like, this is so that was the hardest part of editing the film, was taking her from point A to point B and having it feel somewhat natural. Like she couldn't be insane off the bat, or else it wouldn't really allow you to see her as a normal human. But she had to be weird enough that it is like, you know, Sarah's giving these reactions, and they're kind of just like, this is strange. So it was just finding the right takes and building them together that was so challenging, just because there's so many good takes that will never get seen because they just weren't right at that moment.
Is there going to be a Christensen cut?
Yeah, I was going to say, is that? And is there going to be a blooper reel
what are
or
we
anything
doing
like
right
that?
now?
I do have a blooper reel. I'm building the stuff. I have to deliver it next week for the eventual Blu-ray and stuff like that. But
Nice.
maybe I should go in and grab some more takes of her. But they weren't bloopers because they were just alternate takes, you know?
Yeah. Now, do you have an audio commentary on the Blu-ray?
I'm recording it this weekend, I think. It should
Come
be.
on.
Very cool.
That'll be fun.
That's what
You
I'm
just
talking about.
sold two already.
Oh,
just so you know that. You've
what
already
are you
sold
talking
two.
about? It's over. Now, curiosity, what made you, spoiler alert, people, what made you decide to have her give them an out? Like, if you would have just taken this deal, I would have let you go. What made you do that?
I mean, that when I was writing it and I was doing the first draft, I was like, the movie could totally end right here. But I was just like, that's not very satisfying, you know? Like, if she just does this thing and it's all a prank. So it was a very short-lived thought, like I could maybe end it here, and it's just like, no, I need to give the horror fans what they want, which is going to be what happens next. And so it's basically an entire act of the film is just like, okay, this has been a slow burn pretty much to get to this point. Let's kind of have that cathartic release that everyone's wanting. They want to see. I mean, the poster's got her bloody on it, you know, like there's no.
Oh, yeah.
We know it's coming at some point.
It's coming.
It's like, it was kind of that was a quick discussion too. I mean, I say discussion, it's such a small movie. There's no one I'm talking to. I'm talking to a mirror. But it's basically like, Brandon, what do you think about this? But I mean, the whole idea was, you know, with Creep, you have that poster where Mark's standing backlit by the porch light.
Yes.
And it's like, you know, he's a bad guy. It's a horror movie. He's too friendly. You know something's going to happen. And so it's just like, you know, you could go in two different ways here. You could try and hide it and be like, oh, she's just weird, and then, oh, crazy stuff happens. Or you can just say, she's going to she's going to be bloody soon, and just sort of lean into it. And that was the goal. Because if someone's watching, it's like, oh, she's totally crazy. It's like, yeah, I know. Like, that's not the point of the movie.
Yes.
Like, it's not a twist. It's just, I would rather them not focus on that and just wonder how are you going to get to that point?
Exactly. Yeah. I was thinking, because I was like, when she got up and she's like, oh, she's not dead. You're like, oh, this whole thing was
Right.
And she's like, I was going to let you go.
Right.
And I was like, what a smart thing to do right here.
You couldn't
And be
leave
like,
well enough alone.
Yeah.
okay, this is how you want it. I was like, oh my God. Now it went. So it gave you you're right. It gave us a release of, oh, this is just a thing. And then we let our guard down, and you're like, wrong again, buddy.
Right. And
We're back to where we started.
You know what I liked about that particular scene is that something she did that you've seen in a lot of movies before, and she does it in a way where it didn't really. I'm going to use someone for example, but I'm not knocking his performance or the movie. But I'm talking about, like, for instance, Matthew Lillard in Scream. When we find out the reveal in that one, and he goes off on the big monologue, and it just gets really, really over the top.
Right.
You know, she does the same thing, but it's the way she does it. She's so cool about it, because it's almost like I got the impression that she was even though she knew she had something that she had to take care of because they've opened up that box and now she has to fix that problem,
Right.
she was still able to kind of be able to like, oh guys, don't forget to hit subscribe and all that shit. And she just seemed like she was having so much fun with it. And I liked how you did that versus, I don't know. I mean, that's just my opinion, of course, but it just feels like it didn't go so over the top. It was just par for that character.
Right.
She never really changed. It's just part of who she is, you know?
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's kind of the whole thing is that you've got these two characters that are doing that, and so she's almost like mocking them. She's like, this is
for sure.
showing them what they would be doing in this situation, and just sort of and her whole lie is just like, I mean, they had so many chances to get away, like you can see Gracie when she's standing in the middle of the road and she's like, it'll be so good for our video. She's looking right at Claire when she says that, and then you can see it cuts to the front of the behind them, and you can see Claire's eyes in the mirror following her because she's just like, if she just said, no, I'm good, they probably would have been fine,
Yeah.
And
or just turned around her
But
and
views-
drove around her a little bit.
Views is all that matters.
Yeah.
Views and views
Yeah.
and views. Yeah.
And so if they had just gone on the trip and just sort of enjoyed themselves and had a nice trip and let Rebecca off in the background getting rid of bodies and stuff like that, it would have been totally fine. They would have gotten away fine. But because of who they are, and what they decided to do, it kind of was their downfall.
I also love the fact that she didn't let a lot of people, like, they'll get stabbed and they're able to run like 5 miles. You were like, nope.
Yeah.
You made it about 100 yards and called it a day.
Right.
I was like, oh, this is a real movie right here. He's like, we're not doing this. You're not a hero. You're just not.
Yeah.
You are done. And it's just a brilliant film that I'm just so glad that Shudder had on their main. As soon as you open the app, I'm like, hey,
Yeah, that's
what's
gotta feel good.
this? And if I would have known it was done by you who did It Stains the Sand. Dan, remember when I told you about that movie?
How long ago did we talk about that movie?
I didn't direct that. I just produced it.
You
but
produced it, yeah.
But your involvement still.
Exactly.
I mean,
I would have been like,
I remember.
of course.
We've been doing this, over 4 years now,
Yes.
I think. And I think we talked about that one like the first
Ages
year, maybe?
ago.
Crazy.
Yeah, something like that.
That's
so,
funny.
yeah, Steve's a massive horror fan.
Oh,
He's
dude.
actually I've always been a horror fan, but he's got me way more into it, showing
Yeah.
me so many different movies. So I've really been enjoying the whole horror aspect of this. And like I said, this time of year, we've been fortunate enough to talk to some other people too, like Matt Leslie of Summer of '84.
Nice.
I just have so much fun this time of year. I wanted to stay on track real quick because you had mentioned Montreal twice now.
Yeah.
Are you from Canada?
I am, yeah.
Okay, so that brings me to my next question. How did you get together with Blitz Berlin?
Oh, cool. So
By the way, Martin says hello. I told him that we're going to be talking to you.
Oh,
We-
funny.
we interviewed him earlier this year, and he told me to tell you hi.
nice. Yeah, we were talking yesterday. He's so I didn't meet them. I had heard of them because the guy who I wrote my first 2 films with, Colin Minihan, he did a film called Extraterrestrial, which Blitz Berlin that was their very first score. And so he brought them in because he was friends with them, and they scored that film. And then when he did It Stands the Sands Red, Blitz Berlin scored that one as well. And so that when I did my first film, Stillborn, it was just like, I'll just use those guys. We know them. We have a relationship with them. And so I worked with them for the first time there, and we just had, a lot of fun. It was just, they're both, it's 3 dudes. They're we share a very similar sense of humor. And so, when you're working together, it's business, but it's also fun. And so we just sort of, during Stillborn, we kind of created a relationship there. And then on this one, I just sort of reached out. I was like, look, we have no money. It's just like a low budget thing we want to do. It's a pandemic movie. Would you guys be down? They're just like, yeah, for sure. And so we just sort of worked on it again, and it was another great experience. And so now I've got another one starting to ramp up, and I'm talking to them about it too. So it's just, that's kind of the whole thing for me, is just sort of creating these relationships that you can sort of treat each other well and fairly, and sort of come out of these things with cool projects that everyone's proud of, but they feel like they're a part of it, and it's not just sort of a job, and just sort of having relationships that you can, that are kind of everlasting. That's kind of my big goal every time I do a film. Like, I'd love, I can reach out to Keegan Connor Tracy anytime from Z and just sort of say, hey, check in. And that stuff to me is really cool, just being able to form those bonds and stuff like that. But yeah, Blitz is great, and they're just a super talented and fun dudes.
Now,
Are you a music fan?
oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, I don't know anyone who's not really a music fan. I'm not like a big concert goer or anything like that. But I love music. I love film scores. My tastes are super all over the place. I definitely don't like country, but just I like things like I can see the Abbey Road picture behind you. I didn't really get it. Like I never really understood the Beatles until I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, and I finally just sat down and listened to them, and I was just like, oh, I totally get it.
Yeah, you're like, that's what it is.
It's great. It's just awesome. So I mean, I don't really have like a favorite or anything. I just sort of like random stuff. If I hear it and it sounds cool, I like it. I've got no real, I don't know. I used to be a huge Michael Jackson fan, but when Invincible came out and stuff, that was like peak Michael Jackson for me, because I had gotten into, I was very young when Thriller came out and Bad and stuff like that. So
yeah.
But when Invincible had come out, eBay was a big thing. So my brother and I, we would buy old VHS tapes of his old concerts and stuff like that, and just watch live at Bucharest and
dude, he's not human.
Yeah.
On that live in Bucharest, he's not human.
It's crazy.
He's not a human being, dude.
Yeah, and just seeing all the people just crying and passing out in the crowds, it's crazy.
We'll never get that again.
Yeah.
We'll never. Speaking of social media, since we have a tangible. We can see the people online, and sometimes they'll reply to us.
Right.
Michael, he didn't show up until you saw him.
Right.
And then he disappeared. He was like a god of some sort.
Yeah.
Then he'd appear somewhere. You're like, oh.
Yeah.
Now you can tangible get these people.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, movie stars are like that too now. Like you have Chris Pratt. He's very social. He's very, forward faced. But then you have someone like Leonardo DiCaprio, who started younger, and his heyday, or like when he became a massive star, was kind of like Titanic era, where there was no social media yet. So he's like tied into that older Hollywood thing, So it's interesting because he's just, him and Chris Pratt, they're probably, they're doing the same scale of things, but they're just totally different because they came up at different times. But he's kind of like that. He's just like movie star. When you see him on the screen, it's just like, oh shit, it's Leonardo DiCaprio. I didn't see his tweet. I didn't see him on Instagram live story. Like when you see him, it's because it's on purpose.
Absolutely.
He's doing this film.
Totally agree.
Yeah, and
I
so
totally agree.
It's different now. Like I can watch. You like someone, you go on follow them on Instagram or whatever, and you can see them, and you're just like, oh wow, you think that? Like your opinion sucks.
Exactly.
I don't like you as much anymore. Unfollow.
Yeah. Exactly.
Leo, it's just like. Movie star.
The only people that really bridge that gap of I'm a movie star from back in the day and I'm social is Tom Cruise.
Or
he
Tom
does
Hanks
them both
too, a little
somehow.
bit.
Oh, and Tom Hanks, you're right.
Yeah, he's definitely. I mean, he's not too social, but he's he's big on SNL, and he's got he's done a ton of podcast stuff, and he's just sort of become the friendly face of superstardom. But yeah, Tom Cruise is for sure. He's an interesting cat.
He's different, and I argue with Dan because I'm just like,
we talk about this often.
Yeah, I say Tom Hanks gets paid to play Tom Hanks. He doesn't really act.
Right.
He just is himself in different situations.
Are you talking about Cruise or Hanks? Because they both kind of do the same. Okay.
Cruise, I could see him kind of. The only thing he's done different is like Magnolia and
Tropic Thunder.
Yeah, Tropic. Those are the two things you're like, oh, he acts.
Yeah.
See, what I think about Cruise, though, is like he sort of found a formula, and he stayed with that persona more or less, and has utilized in all of his movies. But I do feel you, Steve. I do feel like when Tom Hanks is on, it's just like, oh, that's how Tom Hanks would be at my house.
Yeah.
I can just watch Tom Hanks be Tom Hanks. Be like,
Comfort
let's do this.
And it's certainly not a knock. It's just, it is what it is. You know what I mean? I love watching Tom Hanks.
Yeah,
so,
it was like Finding Neverland when he played Walt Disney, and you've got that like he looks nothing like Walt Disney. When you see him for the first time, and you're just like it's Tom Hanks, but then 10 minutes into the movie, you're like it's Walt Disney.
It's Walt Disney.
That's my Walt Disney now.
That is so funny.
He just sort of takes on the persona.
Speaking of stars, who was the well? I guess it wouldn't be stars unless you're a horror fanatic. Who was the horror director that made you say, or movie that made you say, I want to do that?
That's interesting. So I mean, it's kind of like when I started to see films like Blair Witch and Paranormal Activity, even though they were kind of spaced out, far. I was only in the 8th grade when Blair Witch came out. But that was kind of the first experience I had with low budget horror. You know, like actually, you know, that was like the $30,000 movie that no one knows where they spent the $30,000. But like that was, I think it was like Paranormal Activity when you hear about how he shot it for like $8,000. He just redecorated his house, you know, bought a bunch of stuff and then made it. It sort of became like a tangible thing that it's not just, you know, I went to film school and this came out shortly after that. And it, you know, my feelings towards watching films and how you make them, like my interest was in how you make them now. And so when I would watch stuff, I would be looking for the seams and looking for that. and that, you know, seeing a movie that was made for $8,000, whatever it was, and it being on the big screen and in a theater, it kind of gave it a tangible, like, oh, like that's so cheap, I could make that, you know, and it starts to make you go down that path. And then you start seeing the Blumhouse movies like Insidious and they didn't do this, but Sinister, and they're just like these very small films. They're in a house. You know, I can find a house. I live in a house. Like I can make a movie in a house. And so it's just like there was sort of this series of events and this gradient from, you know, movies are just movies that I enjoy to movies are movies that I could potentially make. And so it was just sort of bridging that gap, that those films were just sort of showing like, oh, you can do cheap things and still kind of make them accessible to a wider audience.
That's really smart, because I'm wondering how, speaking of Blumhouse, how do you feel about that? I think it's genius. How do you feel about that Blumhouse way of doing things where it's like, I'm going to give $5 million to 20 different people.
Yeah.
Do whatever you want. One of them's going to hit. Do you think that's a great way of bringing directors up, or do you think that could get, because with Blumhouse came a massive influx of horror that may be good, or just may be horrible, but there's a lot of it. What do you think about the Blumhouse math? I
think Jason Blum's a genius for doing what he's done. I mean, he's you know, he's got Oscar-winning films now because he just gives, you know, he finds talent and gives them money, and there's math involved. It's like, okay, I can get M. Night Shyamalan, and he's going to bring me $3 million in foreign, you know, receipts. I'll give him $2 million and let him make the visit, and you know, and he so good, and he basically brought him back from the dead, you know, from obscurity, because he made a ton of big budget crappy movies, and this was him kind of being like, I'm going to do something small and personal and fun, and he made The Visit, and then he made Split, which were both awesome, you know,
come on,
and just very distinctly M. Night, and it was just kind of, you know, he gave him a chance to sort of get his career going again, and then he made Old, which apparently it's not supposed to be that good. I haven't seen it yet.
No, you could hold off on that. I think, unfortunately, the more money you give Shyamalan, sometimes he just does but The Visit genuinely had. You're right. I forgot that was a Blumhouse.
That's such a standout movie.
I totally
over the past few years.
Blumhouse. You're right.
It's great.
You're totally right.
And he does that with other people. He just gives, you know, there's just a lot of math that goes into it. Like for me, he'd be like, okay, he can make $40,000. So if I give him $20,000, you know, then, but yeah, it's just like, it's all just, and then you get a bunch of them. Like you give Jordan Peele a bunch of money and he can make his thing. I think it was like $5 million or something like that. And if one fails, it doesn't matter, because a hit covers so many of your losses that you're just, it's just
his
like
hits are big.
They're big,
hits.
yeah, for sure.
They're massive hits, and I think that's as a producer, I know you can also, you know how you produced It Stains the Sand Red. You can see how, for $2 million, you can make. Like some people are like, oh, that's not a lot of money, but from someone like who's seen low budget movies, you could say I could make $2 million stretch for
forever.
How long? You know what I'm saying? I could do amazing things. But when we're so used to $300 million budgets, when you hear $2 million, you're like, well, then, I guess they can do whatever with that money. But if someone, as a producer, you can say, do you understand what I could do?
Right.
What magic I can make with $2 million, and then someone driving away being like, have fun.
Yeah.
Do whatever you want with that money. You're like, okay.
Every movie I've made and been a part of, like producing, or the budgets of all of them combined aren't $2 million yet.
That is amazing.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That is a sound clip. What?
My man is making something out of nothing right
Are
there,
you
man.
kidding?
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I thought Stillborn by itself was $2 million.
No, it's like 150 Canadian.
Oh, come on.
It was very very small.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, it was small.
That's wild.
It's
That
funny.
was like
Wild,
a
man.
multi-million-dollar movie.
Well, it came out like Latin America. It opened wide in a bunch of countries. Like if you go on Box Office Mojo, when it came out in Colombia, it was second under the Avengers: Infinity War. It was, and it was like, and I don't see anything from that. Like that doesn't affect me at all beyond just being like a weird thing that I'm like, why? How the hell is this?
It's a sweet flex, you know.
Yeah, it's a cool flex, but it's very strange. I don't know. I've sort of found my niche is like making cheap films and making them somewhat marketable. But it's been interesting.
On that note, I wanted to actually ask you about that. So you said you found your niche in doing that, and it seems like you're doing it very, very well. Do you have any others, like do you have any ideas that you've been throwing around? Not that I'm asking you for the literal idea, but something that you know what, I think it's going to require me to go a little bit bigger, something I'm going to just keep putting off until that time is right. Do you have that dream project, or are you just kind of doing what you do?
Yeah, I definitely do. I have a pipe dream project. It's like my brother and I have been writing now, and he wrote a 2-part book. Probably 5 years ago, he started it, and then he wrote the sequel a little bit later. But we adapted the first book into a 9-episode series, and it's kind of like a horror thriller throwback 80s kind of, about a small town and sort of just a lot of people what happens behind closed doors kind of situation. But it's one of those pipe dream projects that we would love to do, and we've sent it out. Like a lot of we've got a producer on it that's sent it to different places, like and they've all sort of turned it down right now. It's just the wrong time. It's just one of those projects that I think will eventually happen. It's just not the right time for it, and it's a huge undertaking. It would be a massive step up. But we wrote another script that I'm just waiting for the deal to close, and then we'll be shooting it in the beginning of the year, next year. So that's a bit bigger. It's definitely a broader scope, which will be fun. Still horror, but a lot more characters than only 4, and a lot more locations than only 1. So it'll be kind of, it'll be. I've definitely sort of, we were talking about Blumhouse when we did it. Stains the Sands Red. It was such a grueling shoot because we're out in the desert like 2-3 hours every day. You have to drive there, drive back. It's just it's demoralizing. And so when we were talking about what we could do next, we're like, well, what the Blumhouse model, where you basically shoot in one location, you have maybe 1 or 2 days at another location just to open up the scope of the film, but for the most part, everything takes place in this one location. And that led to Stillborn and Z, and then Superhost was basically the same idea. It's just like keep things small. And I'm definitely starting to get out of that a little bit with the future stuff, because it's hard to be in the same location for that long. When you're just, dude. It's a weird way to make a movie when you're like shooting 5 different scenes. You're like, okay, the camera's set up here. We're going to shoot the scene. It's faster if you just change your wardrobe and come back, and we'll shoot part of the next scene, and then we'll move the camera, and then we'll go through like you have to do that a lot because of time and stuff like that. And it's not the best way to make a movie. So having more locations where like, we only got one shot here, we got to do it right. That'll be nice.
I mean,
from my viewing perspective, it seems like you didn't really need anything else when it comes to Superhost, but I'm assuming COVID had to play something into that. Yeah. So were there some desired locations that you weren't able to actually get to, or was it just a matter of like reducing crew?
I mean, reducing crew is a big thing because we didn't know anything going into this, like how COVID would play a role. We'd heard horror stories where like $500,000 film spent $150,000 on COVID related stuff.
Oh,
and
my
so
God, dude.
When we basically just sort of built this thing to be as small as possible. And then it just once we got sort of more clarity on how much we'd have to spend, it was like 15% of our budget had to go towards like a set medic and testing and all that stuff. Once we had that, it was just like, okay, we got to scrape off more of the crew. So like the PA was gone, the assistant director was gone. It was just, it was me and 6 other crew people out in that, in that house. We just couldn't afford, a full kind of the full gamut, I guess. So if you looked at like Stillborn or Z's crews, and then you look at this, it's laughable how small it was.
Like, I know that, speaking of those crew sizes, when you go from producer to director, even though you produce and direct certain movies, do you remember the first day where people were like, so what are we going to do here? And they all look at you and you're like, oh, that's right.
Yeah.
I'm supposed to know the answer to that.
This is where I talk. This is where I talk.
That's me. I guess, do you remember where you're like, I'm the director?
Right.
Like, it's on me.
So with Stillborn, I live in Las Vegas, and we shot that up in Calgary, which is where I'm from. And so I went up there, and I was doing like my first crew meeting with all the heads of the departments. And these are all like 22, 23-year-olds. Like they're all stepping up a level because it's such a low budget. But I'm sitting there at a table, and there's like 10 different departments, and I'm just we go through the entire script together. And it was definitely like a cold dose of reality. Like I need answers for everybody on everything, and it's a thing that never really goes away. Like it's always overwhelming, but your confidence in your ability to make snap decisions or lie really well is that gets better. So if someone's like, oh, I've got these 2 sweaters I need to wear, or this character needs to wear in the scene. Which one is it? Before it'd be like, well, blue's really nice. It might, affect her eyes. And now it's just like, I don't care. Go red. Just wear the red shirt. It's fine. I don't care. There's things that you need to worry about, and there's things that you don't need to worry about. And that's not saying that wardrobe's not important, just that certain wardrobe choices it doesn't really matter. So I'm getting better at like weeding out the things that actually matter and being able to just sort of shit out an answer for something that doesn't.
All right, well, I'm gonna ask you a bit of an embarrassing question now.
Oh boy.
Do you ever look in the mirror and be like, I'm a freaking movie director? Like,
No.
I'm a movie director.
I mean, I think
Isn't that crazy? Like,
This is what I call a Steve question, by the way. I just wanted to
like
point that out.
looking in the mirror and be like, yo, I'm a freaking film director around here. That's crazy.
It's not like I think that. I do have confidence in myself in certain things. I mean, when I get off this call, I'm going back to dad mode. So it's that the movie director part doesn't really help me in that aspect. It's not like my kid's not eating his dinner. It's like, well, damn it, I'm a movie director. Eat your goddamn beans.
Do you know what I wrote?
Yeah.
Have you seen Stillborn?
So it's like there's definitely a switch that turns on. If I have to do some press, I have to do whatever. You turn on sort of that. But in general, I'm pretty quiet and whatever. But I mean, it's definitely cool. I feel like I've accomplished a lot of goals up to this point.
Yes, dude.
It's always about the next step, like I'm trying to get bigger and do more and, right. Like I did, I shot Stillborn in 2016. I shot Z in 2018. I shot Superhost in 2020. And I'm like, how do I do double that? I want to do 2.
That's awesome,
I want to do 1 every year. And so, Z came out last year because of just a delay in release. And then Superhost came out. And so next year, it looks like this new movie I'm doing will be out by Halloween, so I would have 3 years in a row with the movie, and I'm like, okay, cool, I want to build on that. And so you don't want to be complacent, because then you look over and you see Mike Flanagan, and he's got like 18 TV shows and 7 movies.
Come on,
and you're just like,
man.
well, how
Where
the
did
hell
that come from? Yeah, I was like,
how
what
the hell are you doing
world
that?
happened?
So anytime that you sort of get some confidence, there is always that harsh slap in the face from someone that's doing way more than you, and you're just like, okay, I got to get to that guy's level, and you're just, I don't know how. I'm just gonna go sit down and watch YouTube for a bit.
I'm calling it. You're a super dude. I'm calling it. You're gonna be the director extraordinaire. You're that now to me. If I were you, bro, I would be the one asking what everyone does at a dinner table just to get the conversation started. So what do you do? And wait till it comes around to me. Be like, yeah, I direct films, Jake.
It's a tough one. I had.
What are you talking about? Stillborn. Ever heard of it?
With my
Steve's asking you to flop it out on the table and show him how big it is basically what he's saying.
I don't know if it'll reach the table.
Just don't tell him that. You said you're good at lying. Just tell him you'll take out just enough to beat him.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I'll put your eye out. This just happened the other day. My son just had his 10th birthday, and he had a bunch of kids from school come over, and one of the parents who like my wife is friends with the moms, but I'd never met one of the dads, and he came over with them because I guess the wife and him were going on date night, whatever. And he walks in and he just goes like, "Oh, I expected your house to be more dressed up because of what you do." And I'm just like,
Jesus.
I'm like, I don't, that small talk. I'm just like, I can't do that. I'm like, oh, I'm lazy. I got to get out of this conversation. It's
odd backhanded compliment.
Exactly. Like, what I don't even know what to say.
My wife decorates. I don't know. I don't care about this. I want you guys to all leave so I can go upstairs and ignore the kids for the next few hours.
That's so funny, Jay.
But yeah, so it just depends. I mean, it's all context. Like if if you get put on the spot like that, it's I don't know how to answer that. But in a situation like this where I'm talking, I can talk more openly about it. I don't, because my answers tend to be very long. So if he's just like, making a quick quip, I could spend 5 minutes answering that question and it would bore the hell out of him. So it's like, I'm just going to shut up and this conversation is over now.
Exactly. Because you're not really interested in what I do.
Yeah, exactly.
You're just making
a pipey comment that it's put me on the defense. So cool. And I'm like, God, I don't know. The decorations are neat, I guess. What do you say to that?
You're the type of person that should be. Like, that's why you're a big director, because you
got to stop saying big. I just told you the total budgets of my films. It's just direct.
Bro, you have been interviewed on a red carpet, man.
Yeah, but, I mean.
That's big!
See, again, it's like, it is all context. I mean,
yes.
Like, when I'm there, it's just like, okay, this is what it is. But if you see it from your perspective, I can see that that's cool.
I, for the longest time, used to think that too. Like the example that you give of your kid's friend's parent.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like you talk to somebody that is making movies and is a director and has a film that's out on a streaming service. And that does seem pretty massive to someone that doesn't have any understanding of something like that. So I get that. You know what I mean? But I imagine, I mean, you're in your head, you're just Brandon.
Yeah.
That's just doing your thing
and
trying to put some food on the table and make some cool shit that people will enjoy. You know what I mean?
Killing it, doing his thing.
However, on that note of, talking about like, big directors or big movies or anything like that, what are you feeling these days? Who do you think it has really got the chops, or who's killing it in the theater or on the big screen right now, or just, in horror, any genre for that matter?
I mean, my favorite director right now is David Fincher. Like, he's sort of been the most influential for me, and just in terms of filmmaking as a craft, like how you think about a scene and how it plays out. And that's why I don't ever shoot handheld or anything like that. It's always very, very sticks and dollies. Just if the movement, if you're going to move the camera, it should be motivated by something on screen. But I just think that no one in the business has the craftsmanship that he has. Like, you can see, I mean, there's several filmmakers that you can see a frame from their movie and you can identify it. He's one of them. And I just his aesthetic, everything is just very, very evocative to me. I think he's just beyond brilliant. That being said, I didn't love Mank, but I appreciated it more than I dug it as a film. But The Social Network's my favorite movie. I just think it's just like,
it's a great movie.
Aaron Sorkin's script is insane. The performances are all amazing. It's technically just brilliant. But in the horror space, I mean, Mike Flanagan, what he's doing is just absurd, just his output alone, and just the quality. I mean, I don't know if you guys saw Midnight Mass, but it's great.
Oh, sure did.
So fantastic, man.
Holy crap.
And you can tell he wrote a great essay on Bloody Disgusting about sort of getting to the point where he could make it in his career. And it is, for someone like me who's still fairly new in the business and not doing, he went from Absentia, which I don't think is very good, which is a very low-budget film. And then he went from that to Oculus, which is like a $5 million film.
Oculus.
And Oculus is incredible. And I don't know how – if you watch Absentia, you're just like, how the hell did he go from that to this in like 3 years? It's insane.
Yeah.
And then, his output, like, it's just top quality, and he keeps getting bigger and bigger and doing bigger and better things because he's just – I don't know how he does it. He's got kids. He's got a wife. I don't get it, but dude's just a workaholic, and he just outputs great stuff. So I just think he's incredibly inspiring just for what he's doing, and it's not just like crappy, forgettable horror. It's everything's emotionally involving, and great characters, and just the way he does things is great. James Wan, he set up a lot of what's happening right now in horror. Like Insidious was huge. Dead Silence was kind of a little bit more forgettable, but I mean, he did a lot of stuff that led to like Insidious, just the style of horror that he was doing. But he created Saw, he created the Conjuring universe. Like, it's insane what he's done for horror. He created billion-dollar franchises, and that's why he can greenlight a movie like *Malignant*, which personally I don't fully understand.
I was on the same.
That was a movie.
I was like, am I seeing the wrong? And I think the dope thing about James Wan is, I thought it was a multiple for Saw. It was made in multiple buildings. And he was like, no, he just had the budget to do it in this random warehouse in LA.
It's awesome.
I was like, what?
Yeah.
You just have to do what you have,
Totally.
dude.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So that's really genius.
I really appreciate that you can actually, you know, as a filmmaker, you still have the ability to actually give a critique on something like that. How is that with you? Like when you're reading reviews or anything like that, or if you hear maybe I don't know if this has even been the case with you, and I don't know how it would come from me. It wouldn't so far anyway, but it's like, you know, if maybe you hear like a less than flattering review about something that you've done, does that get to you? Does that keep you up at night?
It depends on what they say. Like, I know what a lot of the problems are, like, and not only just from reviews, but when I make something, like, I know it's not going to be perfect because, you know, I'm editing and I'm directing, and like, I'm not perfect. So it's going to be, there's going to be problems, and you're just sort of band-aiding them because that's just sort of the nature of indies. But I do read a lot of the stuff. I hopefully get away from that because it can be a total bummer. But it's weird. The thing, like, you'll see something where it's like, I've talked to people and I've read things where I'm just like, they totally missed like big things. I don't understand where, like, so they're coming from a position that is not right. Like, it's not an objective, subjective thing. They're just wrong about what they interpreted, and that's fine. They didn't like it. I don't care. But the fact, like, at least I know, like, okay, well, it didn't work for them because they didn't get it. And it's not like it's deep or anything like that. It's just they missed something, whatever. I know for a fact that works, and certain things don't. So when you do see something from someone that you respect or something like that, and they come out and they've got problems where you're like, they hit on the thing that I know
one thing that bugged me too.
That's harder because I'm like, I should have taken the time to fix that thing, but you know, I'm doing editing, I'm doing the VFX, I'm doing all these things, so I'm like it's just sort of compartmentalized into pieces, and everything's kind of a vacuum. But I mean, in general, I don't think negativity bothers me. I mean, it definitely gives you an appreciation or not an appreciation, but it gives you just sort of what's the word? It's just I sort of understand how like Rotten Tomatoes isn't the Rotten Tomatoes that it was 10 years ago. You know, if you look at the top 100 movies or whatever on Rotten Tomatoes, before it was like Shawshank Redemption, got like very similar to the IMDb list, but now you look and it's like it's all stuff made in the last 3 years. You know, it's
what's playing this week.
Yeah, like everything is certified except for Superhost. Everything's certified fresh. Everything is 90% and up, unless it's like the new Halloween for some reason gets knocked down to 50.
So weird.
And it's almost just like one person says something and then they're all like, yeah, you know, no one wants to really stand out, and so it's very homogenous. I feel like the divisive movies, like something like Malignant, are the ones that are the most popular because people really like it or they just don't at all. And so it is kind of just I don't know. It's a thing that exists. I mean, there's so many reviews out there for these films. Like, there's so many podcasts, there's so many YouTube channels, there's so many blogs and things like that. So there's so much content coming in. You sort of get a base understanding for what is working and what isn't working, and it's less about being upset about it and more just being like, okay, how do I fix that going forward? Like, I need to think about this specific thing next time because it's not working for whatever reason. So it can be very informative. It's just, you know, you definitely don't want to attach your emotions to it because you can spiral pretty quickly.
I imagine
no question. Yeah. And I love the fact that you make, you know, straight up horror. You don't make the cerebral stuff that I can't stand cerebral horror. I just don't like it. Whereas at the end, you're like, what do you think happened? Like, no, this is not what I paid for. I want you to be like, this is what this movie is about.
Give me the conclusion to this movie I need.
Exactly. The monster existed. The end. I don't want interesting. It was, look at the shots and no.
Not everything has to be Inception.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Not everything has to be freaking Inception. You know, that I want an ending, like you're saying with David Fincher. On 7, it wasn't a situation of what do you think happened? Who knows? You're like, no. Her head is in the box.
Yeah.
Game over.
They didn't show it, but you know it's in the box.
Thank you. Yeah. You know what's in the. Whereas nowadays they'd be like, they show them cutting something open, then the credits go, and they'll be like, oh, I know what. I know what was going to be in there.
It's funny because, I mean, Stillborn has the Inception ending where the dad looks in the crib and you don't see what he sees. And then Z has the boy saying goodnight Z. And I mean, I feel like the answer's in the movie if you watch and you hear,
Yeah.
but it is still very just like vague. I think Superhost is the first ending I did where it's like, bad guy wins, they lose, game over, you know, credits roll.
I think bad guy wins in both your other movies.
Yeah,
Bad guy
probably.
wins.
Probably.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, it was not even at the end of both. I'm like, oh, I know what.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Uh-huh. Good night, Z.
If that works for you, that's great. So, 'cause I know a lot of people are like, is there a sequel? Is this sequel bait? What's happening? And I'm just like, no, it's I don't know.
Both could.
Yeah.
Both could.
Z was
There's
a
no question
disturbing.
about that.
Z was a disturbing movie, man. That movie. There's always been something again, like I was getting at with Superhost. There's like certain things that you see in movies that are not cliche, but if they take place, they again, for the lack of a better word, trigger me. You know what I mean? And it's always been things like I've watched it on YouTube videos or TikTok videos where it's like, you know, you see like the baby monitor camera. And like the kid has got something's got its full attention, you know, or a dog that will you're walking it somewhere and it just stops, and you know there's something out there, but you don't know what it is. I think that it does it masterfully.
Cool.
In that, yes, such a good job with this movie, and just creepy as shit. And I got to tell you, we were talking about this right before you came on, dude. Again, a slight spoiler. I won't even really go into it. It's been, you know, it's an older movie, but still, when that kid Jay falls. Holy shit, I was not expecting that, man. That got me. I was like, oh my God.
It's so crazy.
I had a house full of people. We were watching, actually, I rewatched your movies this week. And I had a house full of people that were, you know, the family and everything. And when we watched it, every single person jumped at that part, man. It was fantastic.
That's cool.
It makes me wonder, like, what was your inspiration on that one? Like, did you have imaginary friends when you were a kid? Or?
No, I didn't have an imaginary friend. I mean, I had a recurring nightmare about Pennywise because I saw the It miniseries when I was far too young.
Yes.
Oh, Tim Curry Jackson.
Yes.
But, I mean, just being a parent, it's just kind of like looking at what's happening in your day-to-day life and finding those moments that could have a twist of horror to it. Like, you know, your kid goes upstairs to play and he's out of view. And it's like, that would really suck if he just jumped over the balcony and landed head first on this thing. And I don't think I'm alone in that fear. Did you guys have kids?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so you've had that. Like, just the kids are just like walking suicide machines. Your job as a parent for the first couple of years is basically suicide prevention. It's just they're gonna walk into traffic. They're gonna walk into whatever. It's awful. And so that's, you know, it's if you apply that kind of, I take my eye off them, what can happen, and put it to an older kid or something like that that is capable of more stuff. That was just sort of the inspiration. It's just like, what are some horrible things that can happen as a parent? Like, what's the worst thing that could happen sitting here while my kid plays upstairs? That's probably it.
But the thing is, you had to add the banging his head on the rail on the way down.
Well, so that house is actually the neighbor's house from the main house of the shoot. No one else would let us go in.
Okay.
Low budget. We couldn't like afford to pay a ton of money. So, we went to the house and it was just like the owner was friendly and was like, yeah, you can shoot here for a day. And we're like, great. So we went in and the script just called for him to fall in the background and just like land on the ground. But this house didn't have that. It had the double staircase. So we were just like, I was like, we need to find somewhere else. It's not going to work. And so it was just like, well, this is all we got. So it's like, all right, cool, we'll make it work. So the day of, we're shooting, and we threw the dummy, and it just went like straight down, just like a blur. Just couldn't see it.
Yeah.
And then it's just like, okay, let's do it again. Can you slow it down? It's like, well, we're just dropping it. It's gravity. So just drop it. It just shoots down. We do it a few more times. It's just like, it doesn't read. Like, it's too fast. It's just half of a second of a blur. So it's like, here, let's throw them at the banister. Let's wrap the banister with bubble tape or bubble wrap, and then let's do that. And then it's like, bong, and you're like, oh, that's it.
You're like, what?
Yeah.
And it's right when she's like, I just have to take care of myself.
Yeah.
Boom! You're like, oh, God.
Shit. Yeah, it's just.
And you just know it's going to be bad news too. When he's like, I forgot. I'm so sorry. I'm blanking on the kid's name that fell, but he's like, where's he at?
Yeah.
Oh, he's up. Yeah, he's upstairs. Boom! Kid makes the beeline for. Oh, you know some shit's going down.
Oh, dude, it was so good, and I was like, oh, this is a movie. And then the little flash of the creature in the playground little area where he goes through the tube, you're like, oh, this is a monster. Okay, I thought it was going to be like mysterious.
Right.
We know it, but when you see it go, what was the choice of saying, I'm going to let you see, like, this is the part where I'm going to let you see that there's something?
Well, we had two scenes like that in the film. One we forgot to film because we're dumb, and the other we like shot. So we had like, early in the film, the mom puts away laundry, walks out of the room, and there's eyes over her shoulder in the closet. We had
that train.
Yeah. So we had a second part of that played out where she does the same thing, and there's eyes in the closet again, but she sees the trains on the thing. And then she was gonna like do the light thing, and then there was gonna be like the guy would be right in front of her when she does like the on off. So
that would have been great.
I was telling my wife. I'm sorry to cut you. I was telling my wife. I'm like, I really hope that's what happens, because that would be so. I mean, obviously you forgot about it and everything, but
that was
great
scripted.
fucking idea, man.
It was scripted, and we shot half of it, but we didn't have the kid yet, and he was part of it because there was a scene where they play hide and seek. It's not in the film because we only shot half of it. Basically, she's playing hide and seek to try and be good mom, and then she can't find him, gets frustrated, and then she hears the door like creak, and we shot all that, and then she goes, looks in, sees the eyes, all the stuff happens, and she reacts. And because we didn't have Jet when we shot that, the little kid, we only shot half of it, and we're like, okay, we're going to turn around, do the other half of it later, and we just never did it. So I don't know how it happened, but when I was editing the film, I was like editing the scenes leading up to it, and I'm like, wait, where's we didn't shoot it. And so that was going to be like the big glimpse of Z, like it would have been just like a quick flash of, scary face. But we had the play zone moment basically around the same point, and it was like, okay, it's fine, it still works, but it was just such a failure as you're just like, how does that happen? Like half of a scene was just not shot. So the deleted scene, like you can see part of it on YouTube and on the Blu-ray, but it's that was deflating to see that and be like,
that's a bummer.
Yeah.
Oh, but do you think, is there no chance of a Z sequel?
Probably not. No, I mean
a sequel.
Oh goodness!
Sorry.
No,
I'm sorry. I did mention I'm a dad, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I felt like that was one where it was just like I felt it was kind of just this one family dealing with this thing.
Okay.
It was never really meant to do that. Stillborn, definitely because of the genericness of the demon. That probably has more sequel potential. But again, it's hard to do that sometimes. It's fun to kind of explore new things and try new things out. So we'll see. Maybe I'll create a new demon that'll have sequel potential, because that's where the money is apparently.
That bathtub scene in Z
Dude.
was well done too, man. Just a little, like, she turns her head. Obviously, the movie, it's your movie, but the whole splash scene of the water on her face, you're like, oh shit, she's gonna have to turn her head in just a moment. That was really cool.
That's funny.
How much CGI did you use in that?
We had an actor playing him, and he was in full makeup and everything. I just basically made his eyes bigger and his mouth smaller, so it just had this like weird cutesy little boy look. Kind of looks like Michael Jackson a little bit in the tub.
Yes.
But it was just, I mean, that was the hardest thing, was just like how do we make this something that a kid could look at and it's like, oh, he's friendly enough to play with, but an adult would look at it and be like, this is terrifying. So it's like, big smile, big eyes, kind of having a puppy dog look. It's like, okay, kids are dumb, we can forgive him for playing with this thing. He has no friends. But yeah, it was not a lot. I mean, you only see him so briefly that it was just kind of a little bit of enhancements and just like playing with where, squeezing things in a little tighter and stuff like that, and just taking the tall naked man trope and just making him a little more naked, I guess.
That's real.
I was curious though, was that intentional to just show him just ever so much, or was it a budget thing? Like, did you ever think about, what, I want to have this big scene where we get the big reveal, right, and or was it just a matter of let's just keep it like a mystery?
Budget definitely is part of it. I mean, that was, it's a sub $500,000 Canadian movie. So that's part of it. The other part is just kind of the Jaws thing. Like they tried to make it work, and had their shark worked, the movie probably wouldn't be that good. It'd be a lot less scary because you see it in all its glory. So it's just one of those things that I feel like less is more in that. Like the audiences fill in the blanks because they're going to. If you don't see it, you're going to start thinking like, well, what is it? And you're trying to sort of answer that for yourself. But yeah, budget's always a huge part of it. If I had like Hollywood money and I had a Hollywood like a artist that could create a great design, like the Babadook or something like that, that is great to see, like it's very iconic looking, I think things would be different. It's just I don't, when they go, hey, what does it look like? I'm just like, I don't know. What's scary? Whatever.
Well, make something scary for me.
Tall naked guy. Good, we got it. That's scary to me. But yeah, so it's budget is a big part of it, but I also think that less is more in something like that when you've got a creature. Because if you see it and it doesn't hit right for you, it totally takes you out of it. It could work for some and it doesn't work for others.
That's true.
So it's just like, do you really want to risk it? I don't know. Some people do. It's not really a creature feature, so it's just like, just see it when you need to see it, I guess.
Yeah, and that's time tested. I mean, you can even go back to like slasher films, Jason looking through the the woods at somebody or something like that. It's that mystery of what's actually looking at them that can be even more scary sometimes.
Totally.
So yeah, I see how that works. Speaking of slasher, obviously you kind of touched on that with Superhost, but is that a genre you enjoy where like you have the Michael Myers, Jason, and things like that? Is that something you enjoy?
Yeah, I mean, I think those are the ones that I liked the most when I was younger, like the Halloweens and the sleepaway camps and things like that, where it is just sort of the supernatural. I mean, Michael has some supernatural ability to be able to pick people up, and he's survived a million bullets. But in general, it's just sort of that. It's always interesting to have most movies, the main character's the main character, but in these, it's kind of fun where you've got the killer. That's what people care about. They don't care about these teenagers that are going camping. They're just fodder for the killer. They're just like, they've got their little character ticks, their whatever, but they're there to see the slasher, and they want to see the blood, and they want to see the effects and stuff like that. And I think when I was younger, in my early teens and stuff, that was always really exciting just to see kind of the creativity going into that stuff. Like all the kills and any of the nightmares or the Friday the 13th films, it was just, they were constantly kind of pushing the envelope on what they would do next. So I think I think slashers are just in general really fun because it's like kind of cathartic to watch a bunch of morons get slaughtered.
Oh, dude,
it's kind of good.
Yeah, so it's I don't know. I mean, it's there. I just feel like horror as a genre is so wide and open that there's so many places that you can make movies. Like the first two I made were more supernatural thriller types. This one was a bit more black comedy slasher type, and it's like I'm going to be somewhere in the middle on the next one. But yeah, it's just kind of fun to I think horror is just like a giant playground, and there's no real rules on what to do. It's just there's so many people doing different things, and that's what makes it so cool.
That's freaking awesome.
We have several filmmakers that listen to us. Jeffrey, if you're listening, I'm talking to you more Jeffrey. Specifically here. So if you would be so kind, I'm just curious. I mean, I know it's kind of a cheesy question. I certainly don't mean it to sound like a cheesy question, but as a filmmaker, can you give any advice to young aspiring filmmakers that are just trying to get in and trying to find their way into this?
Yeah, I mean, the big thing is just work, like make stuff, even if it sucks. That's kind of like the big thing. Like, make short films, just figure out your voice because, find your inspirations. Like mine was David Fincher. I love the way he shoots things. So it's kind of an emulation that's happening, but I also have my own kind of twist on it. So it's finding a way to be comfortable in telling, doing a scene, like where you put the camera, the deliberateness to everything, because you can do a scene a million different ways. Two people are talking, you can shoot it however you want. It just depends on what you think as a filmmaker is the most effective, and the only way you're going to do that is by practicing. So if you just sort of try and lose the pretense of, oh, I don't have enough people helping me. Like everyone has a film camera on their phone now. They can just shoot something. So I think that the barometer of entry is so low that the only real excuse you can make is just, kind of baloney. It's just whatever an obstacle you put up in front of yourself. So I would say if you're, young and aspiring, just try and just practice, just do that. And if you get to the point where you're looking, you've made a bunch of stuff and you've found your voice and you want to make something like a feature film, it sucks, but try and chase the market a little bit. And this is more of a commercial thing, but so many people make their first films and it's like personal experience about their dog when they were a kid and their parents broke up, whatever. It's very melodramatic and it's not that interesting. It's very important to the filmmaker, but it's not, no one's going to buy that. So
Yeah.
They're just doing their passion piece.
yeah. So it's like, and I think that experience stuff is super important. Like every movie I've done has personal things in it, like with my kids and my wife and things like that. They always tend to find their way into the scripts, but try to just sort of, you're chasing, you want people to see your stuff. You want if you want to make it a career, if you just want to like make a fun art house thing and you've got another job that you're just as passionate about, that's totally great. But if you're, if you want to make it is, a business after all. So you do want to create a product, I guess, that people want to see. And, that can be kind of limiting. But right now, horror and action, they're kind of the two genres that are just like big on a global scale because the film market is so global now. Like if you make a horror movie like Stillborn where it's just mom and a baby, anyone in the world can see that concept and be like, oh, I understand it. I get moms, I get babies. We have those, But if you make a comedy, a teen comedy about growing up in the suburbs or something like that only works for a small fraction of people. Where you take that to Asia, they're just gonna be like, this doesn't hit me at all.
Way too niche.
And even jokes and stuff like that. I don't think comedy plays very well on a global scale because culture shapes senses of humor. So I think, I mean, it just depends on what you want to do. But if you're just like starting and stuff like that, it's basically just finding how you yourself can show a scene and express your vision to an audience and just figuring that out. And the only way you're going to do that is just by doing it. So it's just, start writing, start shooting, just play around because that's kind of the most important thing you can do.
And so finish something.
Yeah, even if it's not seen by anyone, even if it's just for you. I've made short films that I've put up on YouTube, and I've made short films that I realized after shooting, I was like, I totally screwed up everything. And this was like shortly before I made Stillborn, and I made a comedy script that I think is hilarious, but I totally screwed up the script by rushing it, and I didn't think things through. And so no one will ever see it because it's awful, but the concept's great. But it's just like, okay, I made it. I learned a lot by failing there. And, I've failed a ton, and it's just, you just sort of pick up the pieces and you go, okay, what didn't work? And that's the big thing too. So it's not just trying, it's also persevering when you fail, because everyone's going to fail. I mean, some people don't, but in general, it's a process. There's no corporate ladder really, but you're still building, and getting up higher and higher, and just sort of how you get to that point where you feel confident in yourself that you can just take a scene and shoot it and make it work. That's such a big thing, I think.
That is all. And I'm going to switch it on its head a little bit. What would you say to the young producer, since you've done that? What would you say how a young person gets into production side of things? If they're like, I can't direct,
right,
but I think I can do this thing maybe.
Lie. They can. I mean, producers need to just be able to facilitate and get things together. And so, a lot of it is just like bullshitting your way to get stuff. It's like, I need a car for this shoot and we have no money. How are you going to get that car? Like, you're going to have to just pull something out of your ass and figure out how to get the car, So being a producer, I think the most, like, just being able to problem solve and think fast on your feet and lie and cheat and steal and kill, maybe not kill, but I think,
don't tell anybody if you did.
It's just like, can you hustle and get things done? Like, producers gotta do that. It's a tough job and it sucks because when you're just like constantly asking for favors and asking for things and you have nothing in return to give them outside of like a thank you, it's really hard to present that to someone. Like, hey, I really would appreciate it. I don't know if you watch Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Oh, of course, dude.
I would really appreciate it. That it's just like, how do you make that sound convincing? I don't know. I'm not good at that.
So the goal is to produce a movie with two people in the desert, and one of them being a zombie.
Yeah, that's
because then there's not a whole lot, there's not a million favors you can possibly
definitely.
ask for.
That was a good training ground. It was like the actual pieces of the film were pretty simple. Like, you had to get certain locations and stuff like that, but it was pretty simple because the cast is so small. But it was good to sort of wrap your head around the marathon that a shoot is, because it's every day for long days, a lot, and that's always the scariest thing. Anytime you do a film, you're like going to day one, you're like, I've got to do this for 4 weeks. Like, I've got to do 20 days of this. I don't think I can do it. Now I'm a little more comfortable with it. I'm like, I've done it twice, so I know I can. So that part's gone. But like that first time on Stillborn, I was like, I have to do this again tomorrow. You know,
Jesus.
that figuring out
I don't want to go back.
how do you balance that. You know, because it's like sprinting a marathon. Like every day is just like, we've got X amount of hours. We've got 10 to 12 hours. We got to get all this stuff. If we don't, we're screwed. So it's just like, you know, you just sort of get better and better at it and understanding how long things will take. But man, it's tough. It's just definitely, it's just like, it's a suicide mission that you somehow survive.
That's beautiful. I love that quote. It's a suicide mission you somehow survive.
Yeah.
That's beautiful, man. Especially since now I can understand how you could totally miss a shot. Because if you say, we're going to shoot this 5 times, well, it's only supposed to be 3.
Yeah.
Be like, yeah, but the next shot, we'll just do it quick in 2 shots.
Yeah.
But if that one's now 3 shots, you're like, oh, shoot.
Yeah.
One of these is going to have to be a 1 shot.
Totally. That happens all the time. Like you'll have a shot list going into a scene and you're like, I have to do this in 1 shot. I don't have a choice. We don't have time. So you figure it out and you don't, and you forget to shoot it all together. But it's it's definitely insane. Cause I mean, the prepping, you know, all the preparation you do on a film is like the most important thing. Cause once you're on and it's just like a train, it's not stopping. You're just going until the end. If you know, whatever work you put in beforehand, that's pretty much it. I mean, you know, you can come up with a lot of things on the fly, but all the pieces generally are done in pre-production. So it's, yeah, it's weird. I mean, the movie that you have in your head when you get on set, like you realize very quickly, like, okay, I'm making something different. You know, this is not what I was expecting to happen, but you just have to learn to go with it or figure out how to fix it really fast, because if you don't, you're just going to like derail. So that's the biggest thing for a director to do, is just, they have to maintain some sense of control of this car that's on fire, you know, heading towards the cliff. You just have to like somehow be like, okay, guys, come with me. I'm taking you to the edge, you know, and try and get them to the edge and not go off. That's while it's on fire and everybody's shooting at you. It's just, it's tough. It's crazy.
All right. One last nerdy question. I don't want to keep you all day, but, I recently, this is super in the weeds. This is for the filmmakers out there. I was recently watching Kevin Smith talking about how daily he edits the shots together.
Yeah.
Is that something you do, or you say it's a wrap, now let's bring it all together, edit then, or do you like, no, daily, I'm in my I'm doing the editing.
We don't have trailers. So Kevin Smith is a big inspiration for how I do things, because after I did Z, I was like, it was an emotionally distressing shoot for various personal reasons, but coming out of that, like, it was just such a slog to get through that film and get through the edit and stuff like that. It was just like, it was so much work emotionally that it was hard to finish. So I listened to a podcast. I can't remember which one it was. I think it was like a version of Hollywood Babylon before it changed into its current thing. But he was talking about a horror film that he did with a bunch of college students. And he basically, the entire crew was college kids. He directed, and he just saw the pressure that these kids were putting themselves under. And he basically had to reiterate to them, like, it's okay. Like, you know, you made a flower prop and it's not perfect. It's like, it's good enough, you know, and just having this mentality of it's good enough. You know, kind of, that was what going back to when I was talking about the sweaters and stuff like that. Like, you've got 2 sweaters to pick. If it's important, think about it. But if it's not, just, it's fine. And you know, sort of don't sweat the small stuff kind of stuff. And that was, you know, it was really enlightening. And that ended up being why, like, the company that I created for Superhost and is, you know, the movie that we do is called Super Chill. It's just like keeping things mellow. Just like,
great name, by the way.
It's just like, that's just sort of like the way I want to do things. Like Kevin Smith, he's very chill. He has fun, and it's you know, we're not saving lives. We're making movies, and we should enjoy it because we want people to enjoy it when they watch it. So if you, I mean, it is always stressful. It is always hard to do and stuff like that. It's hard work, but if you want to be doing it and stuff, you can find a way to make it fun. And so that's kind of that even goes back to what I was saying about like creating these relationships where I can reach out to actors, and you leave and everybody feels like they went to war, came back, and they all made it with their limbs intact. But going to the editing question, what it seems like I do is after the first couple days, I'll look at the footage and I'll start, like, I'll take a scene and I'll just do a rough version of it just to see if it's working. as the film goes on, it's harder and harder to do that because you're solving so many other things. Like the logistics at the beginning are changing rapidly because like, oh, I missed this scene. I have to push this to day 4 now, which means we have to do. There's so many little things that keep changing.
Yes.
So your brain, you just don't really have the mental capacity at that point. After day 1, day 2, it's still, it's day 1 of a hike, and it's pretty simple and self-explanatory. But as you get higher and higher up the mountain, there's a lot more complications. So, I tend to like, and I did this on Stillborn and Z and Superhost. I would cut these little pieces of it and just get a sense of, is this feel like a movie? And if it does, then I feel a lot better going into the rest of it. Because I feel like even like Cruise, day 1, if you could start day 1 with the crew you have on week 3, it would be such a great experience because everybody, they're all learning as they're going. Even if it's their 100th movie, they're still finding, it's like speed running a video game. You're finding faster and faster ways to do it every time,
Absolutely.
So they're optimizing the way they work. And so by the end, like they're brilliant. But by, there's a lot more mishaps. It's just human nature. We're all kind of figuring each other out, right? And so by the end, like you're so much more dialed in on that. You don't have to worry about if the footage is working. You just have some confidence in it because you know that even it was working before, it's working now. And then, Kevin Smith, he's insane because, he does just like lay in bed and edit. And I don't know if that's because he's just stoned all the time.
It's probably a good part of it, I'm sure.
He's just like, okay,
sure that's part of it.
I'm home now. I'm just going to, whatever. And he's just going to edit. And that's probably a good way to decompress from the day because you need something. But, it's something that I would definitely love to see. I mean, on this next one, we'll probably have someone there cutting the film as we go, which would be really cool, just like to do an assembly, a really, really bad version of it. Because like with Z and Stillborn, or Superhost, sorry, they were the 2 that I cut solo. And the first edit is super hard because it's always bad. And like you can see it's bad while you're doing it. And it's hard to do 90 minutes of bad, and it's going to happen. It's just you finish the first edit, and you're like, I'm going to kill myself. I need a month. Yeah. I'm not looking at this for a month. And you just bail, and you're just depressed for a while. Then you come back with fresh eyes, and you're like, I can fix this. I know how. You've got some you've distance from it, so you're thinking clearly. I feel like if you were doing that on set all the time, it'd be hard. You'd be so focused and like, oh man, that shot that I just did wasn't that good. I could do better. And you'd want to fix that rather than, you got to be looking forward all the time.
You got to keep going. Yeah. And you got to get to that, like your business, Super Chill. Yeah. Your company is just like, it's fine.
It's fine.
It's fine. Yeah. Like, we're not going to look at it and be like, hey, have you noticed that the lighting's off on that?
Right.
We just want to see that the stories continuously go. I did not
100%.
realize you edited Superhost.
It sucks. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work.
Oh well, man. Gee,
it paid off though, man.
It paid off. I can't wait to see what you do next, brother.
Cool. Yeah, hopefully I'll be shooting in a couple months. I'm excited.
And hopefully coming on in another few months.
Yeah. We'll do it
after you're done shooting. After you're done shooting and editing and all that stuff.
For sure. Absolutely.
Yeah, Brandon, thank you so much for your time. I mean, you actually stayed a little bit longer than we expected you to, and it was just fantastic talking to you.
Yeah.
Huge fan. I'm not going to bullshit you. I'm new to your stuff, and I'm just an absolute fan. I think what you're doing is just you're doing the work, man, that needs to be done. And please keep it up. Please keep us, in touch with what's going on. It's just an absolute pleasure to have you on. So is there any place that you want, people to find you where you can, maybe you want to hide from everybody, I don't know, but is there a place where people can go and learn a little bit more about you and what you're doing?
My Instagram, I use that probably the most. Actually, I guess I've been using Twitter since Superhost. I've never really used Twitter before. And so it's been interesting to figure out for Superhost release. I guess it's because I could never find my movies on Twitter because of the names. Like if you look up Stillborn on Twitter, it's a nightmare.
You're going to get a whole other...
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
And if you look at Z, it's nothing comes up. So this is the first time that I'm like, okay, I can split it with Airbnb's posts. That's fine.
Never name a movie Blue Waffle and you're going to be okay.
So it's... it's been. I mean, my Twitter handle is @BrandonC85, and then my Instagram is @BrandonChristensen. You have shorter handles on Twitter.
And may I just say this one thing? If you ever are in need of 2 people to murder violently in a movie, just put it out there. Just consider your boys. We're not too far away. We'll drive. We'll make the drive.
Where are you guys located?
Even though I'm more of a Jason Bourne, you can't. I'm a hero.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
No, please feel free to just cut my head off. I don't care. Possess me, whatever. We're over in Fresno, California.
Absolutely.
Right. That's
man.
what he said in the email. Cool.
Yeah, we're only about 6 hours away or something
right,
like that.
let's
But
do it.
in all seriousness, thank you so much, man, for coming on. It was a pleasure to meet
Yeah,
you.
you too, guys. It was fun.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's Brandon Christensen. Check out his new movie. Check out his new movie, Superhost. I don't think you're going to have a complaint about this one. It's fantastic. It's fun. It's what you should be watching anyway. 'Tis the season, right? But with that, my name is Dan Ramirez. That's Steve Hudson. And again, that's Brandon Christensen. People, be good to yourselves. Be good to the people around you. Peace.